Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. This is the agenda. The importance of small and medium enterprises in building economies cannot be overemphasized. In this fourth industrial revolution, technology-based SMMEs are providing a platform for local, regional and international growth, especially in Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, or the BRICS economies. This possible global interaction has brought the issues of compliance under the spotlight. Tshepo Mosiedi is the Chief Executive Officer of consulting firm TMMBS. They provide consulting, accounting, auditing, taxation and advisory services. Tshepo, a very good morning and thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
It's quite an important conversation. We're talking about SMMEs now, but in the global national conversation, the services of advisory and auditing are in the spotlight in terms of the flouting of governance in those spaces. What does it look like in the SMME sector?
I think in the SMME, the only problem is that small business don't comply, and also medium-sized business don't comply. So when I talk about compliance, I talk about your tax compliance, I talk about your labor compliance. So within the small and medium-sized business, that's what we're experiencing.
What kind of problems does it create for small businesses when they don't comply with tax, but they have collected revenues and they later on realize they have to pay up and sometimes the money isn't there anymore?
Yeah. What happens is that most of them get liquidated because obviously SARS, when it comes and it raises an assessment or an audit, they'll come and say you owe us this much, and if you can't pay, we'll have to sequestrate your assets. So that's what happens. Number two is that it hinders their growth because now you have a tax debt and you also want to do an expansion plan. The money that you're supposed to use for an expansion plan, now you have to use it to pay your tax debt. So now it also hinders your growth.
So what are you advising your clients to do?
I always advise my clients to be compliant because it's always nice to be compliant when you're starting, because you know in the in the future you won't be able to experience things like having tax debts or not being labor compliant. So when you start from the beginning, and compliance is not really expensive, that's why TMMBS is here. We have tailor-made bookkeeping package for all types of businesses, small and medium sized. We tailor those bookkeeping packages to the size of their businesses, and we tailor it according to their turnover. So basically you don't pay much. It's just that they don't understand the importance of compliance in business.
What we're talking about is such an important national issue, and it goes beyond TMMBS. And compliance can be such a big word. There are people all over the country who are aspiring entrepreneurs and want to go into business because they have a specific skill. But the issue of compliance is outside of your skills. It's complying with legal requirements in terms of how you employ people, in terms of how you interact with government, in terms of taxes, in terms of following legislation. Break it down for us in a way that you would break it down to a potential client.
Yeah, so basically that's something that we're trying to address. We always do workshops with various funding institutions and also various companies that are in the small space.
Okay, let's pretend a person watching us now is in a workshop and you're giving them the detail that, oh, it's all amazing that you're an aeronautics engineer and you want to go into creating parts for aeroplanes. Yes. But there are this other side of your business where you have to comply. What kind of advice would you give? Okay,
the advice that we give them, obviously we take them through a tutorial on compliance. So firstly, we talk about CIPC. To say when you register your company, you must
CIPC being the company's registrator.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we tell them that after you registered your company, when your company reaches 1 year, every time or after the annual your annual financial year, you have to pay CIPC annual returns. After your tax year, when you have been trading,
you pay them to CIP. Is it CIPC or CIPS?
CIPC.
Okay.
Yes. So you have to pay annual returns to CIPC. It's only 100 rand. If you miss like 30, if you don't pay within 30 days, you pay 50 rand penalty.
Yeah.
If you've been trading after the financial year,
so that's the first very
first
important
step.
point of
Yes.
compliance.
Yes,
That you
yes,
have to
yes.
pay for having your company registered.
That's correct, because if you don't pay, your company will be on the deregistration process,
Yeah.
or your company will be deregistered, meaning now it's no longer on the system. If you want to do jobs with the government, they'll just check on their database and say your company is deregistered.
So it's
we
an
can't do
annual
business with you.
standard fee.
It's an annual standard fee, only
Okay.
100 rand. If you don't pay within 30 days, it's 50 rand penalty. They add 50 rand penalty. The other one that we tell them about, it's SARS. So immediately,
The other important one.
yes, that's
Yeah.
the most important one. So immediately when you register your company, you get a tax number allocated to your business. So when you trade after the financial year, you'll choose your financial year, but most people, they choose February because it's also linked with the tax, the SARS
The tax year. Yeah.
So you have to submit your financials if you've been trading. Even if you haven't been trading, you still need to submit your tax returns, which is called your ITR 14 or IRP6, which is your provisional tax return.
What other compliance requirements are there?
Your Department of Labor. So if you employ someone, you have to declare with a UI-19. You have to declare to the Department of Labor to say, I've employed this. These kinds of people. These are the people that I've employed. The number is this much. This are how much I've been paying them. They've been working for these days, and then you submit it to the Department of Labor. It's only 1%. The employer contributes 1%. The employee contributes 1%.
So there are the legal compliance requirements, which are, as you say,
Yes.
to the registrar, company registrar, to SARS, to the Labor Department, and then there are the other industry practice ones, which are like your black business. What's that program called? Where you encourage black businesses to grow?
Or like a Black Business Council.
Where you have to show how much of a black management component or black ownership component you have in your company.
Usually that one is for
Are those
medium-sized.
compulsory?
No, it's not. For small businesses, not. So that one is for medium-sized and large entities.
Okay.
So that one is mostly it's for you getting the BE scorecard.
That's the one I'm referring
the BE
to.
scorecard. So that one is for medium-sized and large entities. But for small
How many
business,
people do you
don't
have to
do that.
employ to declare that one?
I think it depends on the targets that they give you. Like DMR has their own targets when you're in mining.
Yeah.
So it depends on the industry that you're in.
So are we essentially saying that people who run businesses and don't get advisory services are running a risk of not knowing what the requirements are and then getting into trouble?
Yes, definitely. So I always make an example that if you drive a car, you have an odometer reading. So with that odometer reading, it tells you where you come from, how many kilometers you traveled, and so forth. But when you have an advisory person in-house doing maybe your bookkeeping, your taxation, or maybe your HR and so forth, they'll be able to explain those things to you, to say, this is how many people you've employed, or this is how much money you made and how much money you've spent, this is your profit, and so forth. So having an advisory person in-house is very important.
What about interactions with financial houses like your banks?
Yeah. So basically, when you are not compliant, it's going to be a problem. That's why I was saying it hinders growth of small businesses. So when you go to the banks, obviously the first thing that they want is your company registration certificate. They want your financial statements. They want to see, sometimes they want to see cash flow projections.
Yeah.
So if you are not compliant, you don't have an in-house bookkeeper or in-house consultant, it becomes a problem now. That's why a lot of small business aren't able to get like funding, even though they've been trading for like a year or two.
The biggest concern for small businesses is affordability of these services. Tell us about that. Is that a hindrance?
Yeah, it is a hindrance, but it's something that TMMBS has solved. So now we tailor-make our bookkeeping packages that we offer to our clients. So basically...
But beyond TMMBS,
yes,
just generally, are these services accessible?
I think they are accessible. It's just that I haven't worked with NYDA, but I know NYDA does offer like business development services, even though it's not, it doesn't reach a lot of small businesses. So that's where we as TMMBS, we are coming in to say we also have to play our part as a consulting firm that has qualified tax practitioners and accountants. Let's give small businesses and medium-sized businesses affordable packages that they...
Because it's important.
Yes.
But beyond affordability, you then worry as a small business person that fine, you've decided to go this route and get an advisory firm, and then they become dishonest. That's problematic. How is your industry dealing with this problem that auditors and accountants are just they're becoming like mechanics in a way?
I think it depends on the integrity of the person. So at the end of the day, like you look at
But when you're paying your money,
Yeah.
you can't just hope that
Yeah.
they're a person with integrity.
Exactly, but you know there's accounting principles. Let me just put it like that. So they teach you how to behave in a certain industry, and also if what I can advise to small and medium-sized companies is that they should work with companies that are registered with boards. So if a person you pay them, they
Registered
with various accounting board or auditing boards.
Okay.
So let's say, let me make an example with South African Institute of Chartered Accountant or South African Institute of Tax Professionals. You pay me, I don't do the job. You can now go to the board and say, I paid this person, he didn't do the job.
Even though
and I'm
at
suffering.
that level there's been problems recently and you know about those problems.
But I feel like it's much better that you take that route of working with someone who's under a board, because obviously that person doesn't want their license to be, taken away. So I always advise small business owners and medium-sized business owners to go for people who are registered under boards.
Tshepo, thank you so much for making the time to come through and talk to us about this important aspect of running a small business compliance.
Thank you very much for having me.